self-service kiosk, or use the BetMGM app to place your bets on your favorite games and sporting events. The app offers free-to-play promotions, live betting options, boosted odds specials at your fingertips. Experience the action at BetMGM Book Bar and Grill, only at the Beau Rivage. We welcome in Mike D to the show. The Saints looking for a coach. Mike D, as this coaching search takes place, is this because maybe Miss Benson's doing all the other things that she's doing? Is this Mickey Loomis and Mickey Loomis alone? How will this work?
I think Mickey's going to have a huge say on who the next head coach is. I think, one of the things maybe people don't get, Gail Benson does keep a close eye on this team, and she's involved with it. Every day matters. But it's basically going to be a decision made by Mickey Loomis along with Dennis Lauscher, who is basically, he's the money guy for the Saints. I think it'll be those two guys that will have the kind of stamp of approval on a new head coach.
In the NFL, you don't have to move like you do in college football because of recruiting in the portal. So with Ben Johnson as the hotshot offensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions, how do you see it, Mike? You know a lot of people in the league. Is most everybody going to wait on him? They don't even play for 2 weeks. We don't know how long they'll win. How do you see that? Or will some teams move just because of the timeline? Go ahead and move.
I think Ben Johnson's going to would be the hot guy for anyone, but he's always been very choosing on where he wants to go to. I would keep my eye on what happens in Chicago because that would seem to be a nice fit for him. He would have a young quarterback in place. He's got some weapons at wide receiver, tight end, at running back. And he knows that division very well. Now, he also knows about stepping in the ring twice a year against Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay. The other option would possibly be New York with the Jets or Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville, to me, I wouldn't want to deal with Trent Baalke. But other than that, it has cap space, has a young quarterback, has some pieces in place and an owner that's willing to spend money. And so I think Chicago, possibly New York, but Jacksonville being the other option for Ben Johnson because there are certain things in place there for him. But in Jacksonville has got that one albatross, and that's Baalke. How he keeps a job, I have no idea. This is the same guy that got into a big beef with Jim Harbaugh in San Francisco.
That's right.
Convinced the York family to side with him instead of Jim Harbaugh. He goes to Jacksonville. He ain't one squat there. Nothing. And he continues to keep his job. They pick high every year in the draft. And I'm just amazed. Again, it's kind of the good old boy network that he has been able to survive all these years. If it's been in San Francisco and Jacksonville, it's unbelievable. But that would be the one negative for me. Now, again, I don't know how much Ben Johnson is asking for other than salary to be a head coach. But if he wanted to bring in his own personnel guy, Mr. Khan would have to think about that. And again, I don't understand his thinking of keeping Trent to begin with. I think that's a negative when you're trying to land a top coach.
Mike Detillier, Saints Insider, NFL Insider on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. You're listening to 105.9 The Zone ESPN. There's several openings around the league, as Mike D was referencing. Saints are looking for a coach. Mike, outside of, let's say they don't win the Ben Johnson sweepstakes, or maybe never even get into it because you mentioned the Bears and some other options. Do you have another name or two that maybe you think Loomis and the band will look at for the Saints?
I think Ben Johnson, I would take his name off the board. Ben Johnson's not coming to New Orleans. But Aaron Glenn would be the guy that I would keep a close eye on. Because of his ties here. He was a former player with the Saints. He was a former assistant coach. He left with Dan Campbell and Dan was a former, coach here with the Saints also. And so he's got ties. He knows how the organization works. And I do think in this league, it's not an all-the-time thing, but I do think it matters if you played. Because when you're getting your point across to a player, he's going to say, man, what do you know about, football professionally? And Glenn could tell him, I know plenty because I played it. I'm not asking you to do something I haven't been asked to do. And so I think Aaron Glenn would certainly be a guy to keep an eye on because to be honest, I think he's number one on the list for the Saints. I think if they had their choice, it would be Aaron Glenn. Some of these other names that are out there, I get it. You want to interview them, but I think it's Aaron Glenn's job if he wants it. If he wants it. Now, again, he may have other options. And like Ben Johnson, you may have to wait a while for him. You may have to wait. So I think Glenn would be number one on the list for me. And it's one, and it's a distant second.
Okay. All right, Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, kind of in the same boat timeline-wise as teams in the running for Ben Johnson because Detroit has a bye. And so they're not even playing this weekend. They play next weekend. They win. Y'all know the drill. But that would make sense on Aaron Glenn. How do you think they'll handle the quarterback position over the next year or two in New Orleans, Mike D?
I really believe unless the new head coach comes in and says, I don't want Derek Carr. Derek Carr will play quarterback for the Saints next year in 2025. There's no good, salary cap relief for this team. And that's a big part of the problem is that they've extended contracts to veteran players, and you kind of stuck. If it's Cam Jordan, he goes down. He's on the Mount Rushmore for New Orleans Saints football players.
Heck yeah.
But he basically kind of got a lifetime deal with the Saints. Tyrann Mathieu is another one. DeMario Davis, and I think of the three, he has the most football juice left in him to play. But DeMario has always sort of talked about every year in the offseason, I think about it. And I want to leave out when I can still play at a high level.
Mm.
And so I think that'll be DeMario's call. Won't be the Saints on when he decides to leave. The other part, too, is, and we talked about this last night, dead money for Ryan Ramczyk. Ryan Ramczyk's never playing football again. And he's going to announce his retirement sometime in the spring, I would imagine. And that's another big hit for this football team for a player who's not going to be on the roster.
Mm.
Man, Bo, you got a lot of money tied up in players that a year from now, they're not going to be around within 365 days.
Mm-hmm.
With Cam, he has talked about he'd like to continue to play. Will that be with the Saints? Or would they say, you know what, you've been great to us. We appreciate everything that you've done, but we're going to move on and give him his release that he can sign with another team. So, man, there's a lot of major financial decisions, personnel decisions to be made on this football team. And the new coach coming in, he's going to understand that very quickly. This team has had that history of kicking a can down the road. And I think they'll continue to do some of that. But eventually, you got to do better money management and pay the credit card bill. You got to do it. And the only way to do it is to get younger and to hit in the draft. Because Tampa showed you how to do it. You know, a couple of years back, they were all chips in. They had never really kind of kicked the salary cap back, but they felt an opportunity with Brady and Gronkowski, Fournette, Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, Antonio Brown, that they kind of kicked a lot of money back, hoping to win. They did win in 2020. You know, they win the Super Bowl, and they made the playoffs. The other 2 years, didn't get into the Super Bowl, and then Brady retires. All of a sudden now, you've got a lot of money dead on the books. But I give Jason Light a lot of credit. He did a fantastic job of a soft rebuild. In 2 years, that money now is basically wiped off the books. And he's hit on every draft choice. Over the last 3 years, every draft choice has made that team but one. Dang. Think about that. You don't think Light and that staff has really hit it? And they hit on the biggest position, and it's not costing them a bundle. Baker Mayfield at quarterback.
Right.
So, man, okay, the blueprint's there for you to do. Will they do it? Will the Saints swallow hard and say, you know what? Let's do what we got to do and try to clear as much money out as we can and try to rebuild with a younger team. I'm not sure they're ready to do that. I'll be honest with you.
Interesting.
So I'm not real sure that they're ready to do that.
Okay. It's a good – you're talking about the Buccaneers. It's a good point. And the Rams went all in, and then everybody said they couldn't do it again, and they're back in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was another team that they did it a little bit differently, but they kicked a lot of money and spent a lot of money on veteran players and then cut them loose. And then you had Aaron Donald walk away. See, that part sometimes gets lost in the discussion here. You talking about one of the greatest players to ever put on a helmet and a jock strap, and he's not there. You know, he walks away after signing a huge contract a couple years earlier. He's not on the roster. And give Sean McVay a lot of credit. Not only has he lost a ton of players, look what every year he's got to do to his coaching staff, because all them cats get head coaching jobs.
No doubt.
So, man, you know, that is really something to see, and you saw it in Tampa. Dave Canales, what he was able to do with Baker Mayfield, landed him the head coaching job with the Carolina Panthers. So you don't think somewhere down the line Liam Cohen's going to be in the exact same spot?
Mike Detillier.
And guess what? He got his start. He was a McVay guy.
Yeah.
And then he went coach at Kentucky for a little while. He was the offensive coordinator. He made Will Levis look good.
Yeah.
Hey, give him credit there. And then, you know, look what he's done this year with an offense that had a lot of injuries along the offensive line. They lose Chris Godwin. The offense still hummed. Still humming.
Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. He joins us on the Out of Bounds show. We're talking Saints, big hire, lots of veterans on, as Mike is telling us, look, you know, they may have another year, but what are they going to do as far as the cap too and in the draft? It's brought to you by Sound and Communications. If you need a video wall for your business or school, soundcomav.com. All right, so Mike D., when you hear talking heads talk about Mike Tomlin and people maybe trying to contact the Steelers to see if they would be interested in doing something, do you say that's not, you know, the Steelers are known, they've only had 3 coaches, as you know, Noel, Cowher, and Tomlin, which is unbelievable. They don't move off guys. He's a good coach, but he hadn't won a playoff game in whatever it is, 13 years, 12 years. It's been a long time. What's your reaction to that, Mike D?
I think there's more outside noise than inside noise.
Okay.
I mean, that's just the way the Rooney family has run.
Sure.
It's always been like that. From the old Pop, Art Rooney, all the way down. That's how there's always done it. There's always this chatter because I think sometimes people are looking for something to talk about or it's sort of clickbait on X and Facebook and whatever they put it on. They're looking for attention, but I think that's more talk than anything else. The inside talk has been different. Man, how many years have that been brought up about Tomlin? He's still coaching there, isn't he? But every year, it's the same song and dance. Eventually, something's going to happen. And you know what? Oh, I told you. Yeah, you told me that 8 years ago. Okay, what happened in the other 7? Again, I think if you look back at history with them, they've never been one to pull the rug quickly on a coach. They will give him every opportunity. And this is something, Mike Ditka didn't say a lot of sharp things here, but one of the things he always would say was when you make a decision on a player or a coach, you better make damn sure you got somebody that's better.
Well, that's a great point, Mike D. Because Tomlin's a good coach.
I think he was talking about himself in Chicago. But I think I understand what he was getting at. That if you make a decision on a coach or a player, you better make damn sure you got somebody that can fill that role and do it as good as he can or better. Because there's a lot of stupidity that goes on today. People repeating this next man up. Okay, that's the dumbest line I've ever heard in my life. But it gets said by coaches, and I understand them saying it to their team. Because you have injuries, you got to have somebody take their place.
Right.
But to have media people say it is head shaking to me. Okay, there is no. If that guy was that as good as the other guy, he would be playing. The next man up is in theory great, but it's not reality, and that's why in this age of free agency. And it's a commuter world that doesn't apply. Okay, I can't tell you how many people would call in the sports talk with us. It's time to get rid of Drew Brees. He can't play no more. Well, we need a running quarterback. Okay? They didn't talk nothing about being an accurate quarterback. Look how many quarterbacks have stepped under center since Drew's walked away. Okay? And you're still trying to replace him. Dan Marino walked away from this game quite a few years ago. Miami's still looking to replace him.
That's a good point.
Now, Tua is a good player, but, availability is an issue with him.
Sure.
Because of, the head issue, and now the hip is starting to give him issues. So all I'm saying is that's easy to say. It's just like Jerry saying, I got 1,000 coaches that can coach this team as good as Jimmy Johnson. Really? What's happened since Jimmy Johnson?
Nothing.
Look at the chaos on that football team post Jimmy.
God, don't even get me started. Jerry just frustrates me. He's so bad at being a general manager. Good grief.
But get ready, because he'll have that job to the day he takes
yes,
that last
he will.
breath.
You know that. You've been around the NFL for 40 years.
Yeah.
Ed Werder talks about it on Twitter. He's like, guys, he's not giving up the gig. He will die as the general manager of the Dallas Cowboys.
And he feels as though he does it better than anybody else. Now,
I mean,
that's the real.
I mean, Howie Roseman and guys that are doing it, Veach at Kansas City and Lynch at San Fran and the dude at Detroit, they do it 17 hours a day. Jerry does it 3 hours a day. This is not hard. Anyway, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
The other thing, too, is I will give Jerry full credit on this. I think he drew up the game plan, and it is a master game plan on finances.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
You got to give him full credit. He was the guy that came up with that, and every team since that has kind of followed suit with Jerry. The problem is Jerry feels as though he is the talent evaluator He's the coach picker. He's drawing up plays in the dirt. I mean, he wants to run everything to get full credit. I think a lot of owners, he acts today more like a 40-year-old than an 80-year-old, that he wants full credit for everything. Now, most people as they get older, they kind of set in their ways, but they're willing to share the part of being in control. Not Jerry. He ain't sharing nothing.
No. Do you think
what other owner has a weekly radio show? Come on.
Multiple.
That's unbelievable.
I know.
That's just unreal.
Mike, I've only got a minute. Jerry's kind of really sentimental in this part of his life. It took him way too long to move off Jason Garrett. Re-sign Zeke Elliott, just dumb stuff left and right. Do you think that they keep McCarthy or move off of McCarthy? I've got 1 minute.
I think he's still debating that, to be honest, on what to do with Mike. I think he'd really like to keep him, though. But I think there's still a little bit in the back of his mind about moving. But I would say right now he keeps him.
Yeah, I kind of get the sense, too. I do. But who knows with Jerry. All right. Mike D on the Out of Bounds show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We'll get into LSU's portal haul with Mike in the next couple of weeks. They have done very well. Brian Kelly is, as Mike said, he's not going anywhere, but the seat's getting a little warmer, and they are kicking some tail, and they already recruit in the top 5 or 7 every year. So I think LSU's ready to make a move here. Mike D, enjoy the NFL playoffs and the week, and thank you so much, my man.
Appreciate it. Thank you, buddy.
Mike Detillier, WWL Radio, TV New Orleans. It's brought to you by Sound and Communications. So if you're looking to do a video wall for your casino, your business, your school, your lobby, your hospital, that's powered by Sound and Communications. SoundcomAV.com. Jake Mangum, live in studio, coming up next.